Alright, before we get started, I just finished filming this. This video was long and difficult and expensive. I'm sunburnt, dehydrated, hungry, tired. A lot of money and a lot of effort went into making this video. So go ahead and check out Utreon and Patreon. Description has links to those. Even if you don't watch the whole video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to the channel, then by all means subscribe to the channel, because I would like to see that number go up. It definitely helps out with the algorithm. Alright, let's get started. Hello there, people of the internet. So, 20,000 subscriber special. I put out a poll to see what it is that you guys are wanting to see, and most of you guys wanted to see my entire arsenal. I bet that there's definitely not some ATF agents that went ahead and clicked on that. So, anyway. Whenever you're a YouTuber like I am, and you have, guns and whatnot that you show up on your channel, you just accept that it becomes common knowledge that you own these particular firearms. So I'm going to go ahead and show off my entire arsenal, as long as what I'm showing off is compliant to YouTube's guidelines. And what I'm showing off is a part of my public YouTube arsenal. I do have some private stuff that I keep to myself. That is my own personal things that are not going to become public knowledge to YouTube. However, that being said, I have a lot of stuff that I got to bring out here. And whenever I was going to go ahead and bring these out here, I was like, yeah, this shouldn't take too terribly long. But, I'm now realizing just how much stuff I have to show off in this video. So we're going to be exploring my entire arsenal today, and I'm going to go ahead and say, Demo Ranch, whenever you did this for your specials, holy crap, dude, I understand how difficult it was to go ahead and pull all of this stuff off. So, a couple of caveats. I will not fire everything that I have out here today. Either I do not have the ammunition, or there's a reason I'm not firing it. Maybe we will start running low on time or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the handguns, because my handguns are dramatically less in number than my actual firearms. I have a side-by-side out here that I'm using for transportation, and it's going to take several trips for me to stick all this stuff out here. So whenever I was loading up the handguns, I was like, alright, I really don't have that many handguns. Let me go ahead and load these up, and I'll run through them real quick. And then I filled up the side-by-side with handguns. And I was like, maybe I have more handguns than I thought. Let's go ahead and get started with this, shall we? Alright, first handgun, I'm realizing I don't have any 38 special out here, so I guess we will not fire this one. This is a Cimarron 1872 Colt open top, chambered in 38 special. You guys have seen this on the channel before. Very nice little revolver. Whenever I got this thing, I specifically wanted some kind of cartridge firing open top revolver, and the 1872 was a very good pick with that. The sights that are on it, they came, well, the predecessor to this had the sights on the hammer, and I'll be honest, with my lack of ability to see, being blind and whatnot, the sights on the hammer were not very good. So whenever I saw the 1872 came with sights on the barrel, that's why I picked the 1872. Alright, up next, this is an 1851 short barrel cap and ball revolver. This right here is actually a very nice little firearm. It is made by Pieta. Well, technically speaking, by US legal definition, it's not even considered a firearm, I don't think. But cap and ball, black powder, I have shot this thing on the channel before. It seems to be pretty accurate and pretty reliable. I would not necessarily bet my life on one of these, and I definitely would not want to find myself in a self-defense situation where I have to rely on something like this. But if I had to, I definitely would. I would take this over nothing. Heritage Rough Rider. I have both the 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum cylinders. I actually don't have any 22 Magnum out here, and this is a 22 Magnum revolver. Well, 22 Magnum cylinder inside of this thing. I have 22 long rifle out here, but I guess I forgot that, and they're not interchangeable, so I'll go ahead and not send lead through this one either. This right here is clearly patterned, generally modeled off of the Colt 1873 single action. Of course, it's not a direct clone, but you can definitely tell the resemblance whenever you look at these different firearms. Up next, Titan 25 ACP. This right here was actually my defensive carry gun for a little while. This was all that I had for a good amount of time. I paid $8 for this. It was not functional. And I got it functional, and I got it functional enough for me to decide, hey, I'd rather carry this than have nothing. So I think the magazine holds 7 or 8 rounds of 25 ACP. plus 1 in the tube if you feel like doing that. I did not feel like doing that, so 7 or 8 rounds in the magazine, and then you just kind of rack your slide and go to town. I have showed this off on the channel. 25 ACP is more powerful than people give it credit for. It's still not something I'd want to rely on in a self-defense situation, but this right here is an accurate little handgun, and I've shown that off on the channel as well. Keeping with my Saturday night specials, I guess, this right here is a Lorsen 25 ACP. I don't have as much time on this one as I do with my Titan 25 ACP. I will say that I also paid $8 for this one. It came in the same batch. It was also not functional. I got it functional. This one had no magazine inside of it, so I can't remember where I found a magazine, but I found a magazine for it. Well, would you look at that? There's 25 ACP inside of this thing. It looks like this one right here holds 7 rounds of 25 ACP. Now I'm remembering why this has ammunition inside of it. I actually used this as a backpack gun for quite a while. Whenever I was out and adventuring and whatnot, I would carry some kind of gun with me. Well, I have definitely upgraded my arsenal from 25 ACP to 22 long rifle, and I'm carrying much more ammunition and a much more reliable pistol. I remember this one not being all that reliable. However, the sights are fixed on the top of the slide and the barrel is fixed, and that normally does equate to a pretty accurate little handgun, assuming that it is actually functional. This one is functional. I'm going to go ahead and save my 25 ACP ammunition though, because 25 ACP is quite expensive. So whenever I got in this thing, the grip had no screws inside of it. I found one that kind of worked, didn't really fit in there, and I actually have a little bit of filler right there. I think that's paper that I stuck in there to kind of hold this thing in place. Other side does not have a screw in it. Well, let's keep with these Saturday night specials. This right here is a Lorsen L9 9mm. I've done some upgrades to this thing, and by that I mean I've taken out a lot of crap that made this thing malfunction. Grip safety's been disabled, side safety has been disabled. I'm obviously not going to carry this or anything like that. But this right here is, well, I've made some upgrades to the trigger, the sear and whatnot. It used to not work at all. I would get consistent dead triggers just because the sear, like where the little trigger bar would connect to the sear, it would consistently disengage. So I actually used pieces from a ballpoint pen to go ahead and fix that. I actually do have some rounds of 9mm. This is just cheap tool ammo stuff. And last time I had fixed the trigger's still unreliable, but it definitely works way better than it used to. But last time I had fixed the trigger, I never took this thing out to see if I got it running again. So let's go ahead and just put a couple of rounds downrange and see if this thing even fires. Well, she fired, and it looks like our trigger reset. Ow, I'm remembering why I don't like this handgun. Hey, it's accurate though, I hit my steel. Look at that. We got ourselves a stovepipe, but a stovepipe with a unspent round. Well, she did fire, and it looks like our trigger did reset. Let me see if I can cram this thing inside of this chamber. Alright, 1 round left. Hopefully this gun doesn't blow up on this round. Alright, well, it's accurate. 40 yards, hit my target. Most of the time I had to remember that this thing does hit a little on the low side, but what do you expect? Fixed sights on the slide, fixed barrel, so it's going to be pretty accurate once you figure out where it's hitting. Alright, up next I got a pair. That's a 45, that's not a 22. Don't you just love 1911s and how freaking similar they all are? Alright, up next I got a pair of 22 long rifle handguns. These right here are Schiappa 22s. And the frame on this one and the slide on this one are ones that I bought from a gun store, but the frame on this one and the slide on this one are ones that were given to me many, many, many years ago whenever I was but a wee lad to go ahead and learn how to use. 22 long rifle, excellent trainer cartridge. I shot the absolute hell out of this thing to the point to where the hammer and the hammer spring on this frame right here actually wore out. And so I went out and I bought myself another Schiappa 22. And the Schiappa 22 that I had bought was incredibly unreliable, and that was because the extractor system on this particular slide just does not work very well. Well, the extractor system on my old slide worked fine, and the hammer spring and whatnot on the new frame worked fine, so I went ahead and I swapped them around and I got myself a 22 long rifle Schiappa that actually works pretty decently, and one that does not work at all. Alright, some 22 long rifle out of the one that kind of works. They're both pretty unreliable, but this one definitely works way more often than that other one does. Oh, I say as it fails immediately. Let's try that again. There we go. Oh, failed again. Oh, never mind. That was just a dud. Well, it kind of works. Like I said before, the extractor on this particular one isn't great either, but it definitely works better than the other one does. Not exactly something I'd want to bet my life on, but if I had to pick between this and Harsh Words, I would probably take this. Moving on. Star Model BM, you guys have seen this on the channel plenty of times. Whenever I bought this thing, it was quite a while ago. And I picked it up for, oh, I don't know, 200 bucks or so. Nowadays, they're going for about twice that, depending on where it is that you find them. They can still be found for cheaper than what you would get the equivalents of. They're definitely a good quality handgun. A lot of people kind of steer away from Spanish firearms just because there's this negative notion about them. But this one right here has been pretty damn reliable as long as I'm using proper ammunition. And it has been pretty damn accurate as well. Hasn't failed on me yet. I mean, for a 9mm, considering that there's polymer 9mm out there that run fine, having yourself a nice solid steel frame, this definitely feels like quite the durable firearm. And I do still have some 9mm ammunition out here, so may as well send some of this downrange. I think I'm hitting low. Alright, let me go ahead and adjust. I haven't fired this thing in a while, and I'm probably going to miss a lot of these shots, because some of these older firearms, this one right here being made in the 70s, and is, what, 50-something years old now? Some of these older firearms don't necessarily hit exactly where the sights aim. So let me just aim a little higher with this thing. There we go. That got it. Perfect. Okay, so this thing right here seems to hit about 6 inches low, and that's fine. There we go. Star BM. God, we're not even through the handguns yet. This is going to be a long time. Walther P1, basically a P38 in 9mm. This does have the little reinforcing lug in the frame right there. Lots of history behind these. I'm not going to go in depth about it. Whenever I picked this up, this was actually from somebody who was working at the gun store. They used to own this. I bought it with 2 magazines, leather holster, and the handgun, and I paid not that much money for it. And I'm very, very pleased with this one. This is one of my favorite handguns. Now this right here, this particular series is actually what the Beretta 92S is based off of, and that is our M9 series. A couple of things: external hammer, both double and single action, and it does have a deconker safety on it. This particular one also shoots incredibly low, so I'm probably going to miss a couple of these rounds. No, I got it. Goddamn. Oh, I missed. There we go. Alright, this shoots lower than I thought. Fantastic. Yeah, we're shooting probably about 2 feet low with this thing. Okay, but I did hit my target. There we go. Beretta 92. That's that one. Did I just call that a Beretta 92? That's a P1. Basically a Beretta 92, I guess, just single stack. But yeah, that's P1. I guess P1, P38, depending on which one you prefer. Alright, double stack Ruger P89. This right here has a very interesting locking system where it actually locks using the, using an external part of the barrel back here. There's going to be your locking system, as opposed to like the 1911, which had actual locking lugs cut into the barrel. The reason why I wanted one of the Ruger P80 series, well, one, they're not that much money. This right here is a alloy frame handgun, nice, big, metal, bulky. It has all the bells and whistles on it. We have external hammer, both single and double action, and a decocking system. We have adjustable sights on this thing, and it is a double stack 9mm. This actually competed with the Beretta 92 to replace the 1911. Not this particular handgun, but the Ruger P series. And I have just a few rounds left of 9mm that I'm going to send downrange here. I can't remember where this thing hits, so I'm just going to aim center. Apparently it's not center. I saw some dirt fly up, so let's try aiming a little higher. There we go. I guess it fires a little on the low side. Yes, it does. That might have been a little too high. I'm still trying to gauge where this thing hits. Alright, I saw some dirt, so I guess I compensated too much. But there we go, Ruger P89. This right here is a fun one. Like I said, decocker, double single action, and the sights are adjustable. Taurus Spectrum, you guys have seen this on the channel before. The reason I got this was because I need a little pocket pistol for whenever I don't feel like sticking on like my actual holster and belt and whatnot. Like if I'm rocking gym shorts or sweatpants and I'm not expecting to deal with much, or I'm like just going somewhere like the convenience store or something like that, I'll go ahead and I'll throw this thing into a pocket holster and bring that with me. Definitely better than having nothing. You guys have seen this on the channel before. It's reliable, it's accurate. I've ran tons and tons of rounds through this thing, so I know if something did go down, I could bet my life on it. Not necessarily a fighting gun, not something I'd want to bring out. Double action only, fixed sights, however the sights are right on point. So Taurus Spectrum, don't have any 380 out here, so this one will not be ran. Alright, the last of the handguns that I have out here with me for right now, that will change once I go back in. This right here is a 44 cal. This is a Pieta manufacturer, I believe. Yes, Pieta. 44 cal, 1858 Remington, I think is the designation. This particular one has issues with the little arm that rotates the cylinder, and the spring on that arm is busted, so you actually have to aim this firearm down in order to rotate that cylinder, which only sometimes works. You gonna rotate for me, buddy? There we go. She's trying to rotate. There we go. There's like a certain angle that you gotta hold it at in order to get that to engage, and it kind of works occasionally. This right here does have good timing. It does lock up properly, so it can fire. You just gotta manually make sure that you are in the proper orientation. But 44, I fired this on the channel before, and I mean, black powder is black powder. I normally use like 30 grains of black powder to send lead balls downrange. I use either 4.52 or 4.57 projectiles in this thing. Gives me a nice little lead ring around it. Oh god, this video is gonna be so long, guys. All right. M38 Carcano, chambered in 735. I bought this from some dude at a Waffle House, and I do not regret that. 735 Carcano ammunition is expensive and difficult to find, and unless you're loading your own, you probably won't be firing this rifle very much. It is a controlled feed, so although I am going to fire only one round, I'm still going to use the clip. There we go, loaded from the clip. These actions can be a little on the sticky side, but I got my clip out, and this right here is, I think, the only rifle that uses a true 30 caliber projectile. Oh god, don't go nowhere. You guys stay right there. A true 30 caliber projectile at .300 diameter, so you don't want to put 308 bullets through this thing. Okay, so yeah, I fired that, extract that, save my brass, because my god, the odds of me finding more 735 brass are quite minimal. Besides that, this right here, we do have somebody's name carved into the stock. This was in finished service. We have an SA on the back. Not much more to say about it. Fixed rear sight, unlike many of your military style rifles. Okay, this one right here is not a very common one to see shot because ammunition is basically unobtainium. 7.5 Swiss Schmid Ruben. This is one that's been on the channel for a long time. This right here has a ton of trench art on it. All along the stock, somebody has gone through and just carved all sorts of stuff. We got dates, we got names, we got like stuff that doesn't mean anything to me because it's in a different language. On the buttstock, we got something that has gouged out the buttstock, and there's broken glass in there, so maybe somebody broke out a window with this thing at one point or another. Cartouches are still visible on the stock. This is a 9611 straight pull, and they were patterned after the well, it was I think an 8696 converted to 9611 to kind of mimic the K11s or their Swiss long rifle, the model 1911 that they were using at the time. And I know that because this pistol grip right here was added onto the stock. I'm not an expert with these rifles, but I do know enough to say this right here. This particular one takes a 7.5 by 55 cartridge. And the earlier versions, the 86 pattern non-updated, takes a 7.5 by 53.5 semi-smokeless cartridge, I believe. This is a straight pull rifle. Bolt comes straight back. You don't have to rotate anything. And then to get it to go forward, you got to push your magazine follower down. And I've crushed my finger plenty of times with that. I did have to replace the front sight on this particular one. So that was fun. I basically just beat that thing into place and now I have myself a usable rifle. This project I'm undertaking is going to take so long. My God. Up next, #1 Mark III SMLE. This right here is notorious for having a bulldog style nose cap on it. Very unusual looking. The British wanted to cover basically the entire barrel, so you can't see the barrel sticking out of this thing. It is just completely covered in wood. This one right here is a SHTLE, so a short Lee Enfield. I see a #3 star, or a Mark III star. And it says GR, looks like BSA CO, so right there is our receiver band on this thing. Very simple action. It's a cock on, close action, so it is a very fast action. The one thing I don't like about this rifle, or any of the Enfield series, is it takes a rimmed cartridge. 303 British is also kind of on the expensive and difficult side to find nowadays. But whenever you do find it, and you do manage to get out to the range and send some lead down range, it's fun. And the 303 British round is definitely powerful enough to handle basically whatever it is that you would need to handle. External magazine, the magazine does come out. Safety's on the side right here. I see 1, 2 sling swivels and what would probably be a stacking rod up there. This does take a blade type bayonet, I believe. Besides that, that's pretty much all I have to say about this rifle. I'll go ahead and point out the brass butt plate on the back. It might be bronze, might be gunmetal, but I'm going to assume brass. Alright, up next, Old Sketchy. I drove across the state of Florida to get this rifle. Did I? Did I? Did I? No, I don't think I did. Actually, yes, I know exactly where this rifle came from. This was a find at my gun store, and I paid about $25 for it. It was originally rechambered in 7.62 set me, but 7.62 NATO works fine through it. I wouldn't fire .308 ammunition through it, but what I did was I actually got a barreled receiver and reconverted this back to 7mm Mauser because I did not have a rifle in 7mm Mauser. So, Old Sketchy, original .308, well, originally 7mm converted to 7.62 set me, which fires 7.62 NATO fine. And then I unconverted it back to 7mm Mauser. So, cock-on close action, I believe this is a 93 pattern. And besides that, now I have me a 7mm Mauser. And after all this time, Old Sketchy is still firing. Alright, this is an 8mm Turkish Mauser that, well, I borrow a lot of stuff from a friend of mine, and we have a universal friend. Well, that universal friend had this rifle, which belonged to the buddy that I borrow a lot of stuff from, so I bought this off of that guy, so now I have one of my buddy's rifles that I don't have to give back, and I don't feel like cleaning this rifle, so I think I have non-corrosive ammunition here. This is Winchester Super X. Don't know how old it is, don't know what year it was manufactured, don't know if this ammo is going to be reliable, and this is a Mauser 93 action, so hopefully this doesn't detonate in my face. Nope, she fired. Like I said, I'm not sure how old this stuff is or the storage condition, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be reliable. Well, I don't see any signs of overpressure either, so Turkish Mauser, this is an 1933 production, and it still has a side block magazine cutoff on the receiver. Apparently, whenever these were converted from 7.65 Argentine back in the 30s, I think, that side block was taken off. I do not know how it works, but it is there on this rifle. We do have ourselves quite the crack in this thing, and I don't want to shoot this too terribly much until I fix that crack. I'm sure somebody's going to go in the comments and point that out. Alright, Rossley R92 44 Special 44 Mag. This right here has been one that has given me a little bit of trouble. Not the rifle, but the ammunition. I seem to not have very good luck with this stuff. So, this is actually a pretty nice rifle. It's modeled off of the Winchester 1892. We got 2 locking lugs in the back. I go through a ton of history about the development of this rifle. If you want to learn more about that, go ahead and go check that out. We got a safety back here on the back of the bolt, or you can go ahead and just do the classic half-cock safety. In order to cycle the action, lever forward, lever back, now we are chambered and ready to fire. I have no idea where that went. I'm not sure if this thing is even zeroed. This is a home build Mossberg 500. I had gotten the receiver off of somebody, I can't remember who, can't remember where. But whenever I'd gotten this shotgun, it was just the receiver, and I didn't want to pay a bunch of money for a barrel and accessories and whatnot. So I kind of like didn't do that, and the receiver sat in my closet for a long time until I came across a barrel that I could go ahead and throw on this thing. And it turns out the same guy that had the barrel also had some accessories that I could throw onto it. So I have a buttstock on this thing, bunch of holes drilled inside of it. It's dirty, it's disgusting, it's rusted out. The pump, obviously we don't have furniture on the pump, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the aesthetics of this thing and how it looks like something that a Florida man meth head would have. Or, well, have you guys ever heard of or seen the game Borderlands? Lots of firearms customization on that. And what I want to do is I want to give this thing like a bandit style paint job. And I feel like that would be really, really cool to have on here. But 12 gauge, 3-inch chamber. I have fired Magnum rounds out of this thing. It is a little on the rusty side, and the barrel is short, so the pattern isn't great, and there's no sights on it, so long range shooting is not exactly something that I would recommend. There we go. Home build Mossberg 500. I think this is actually a Maverick barrel. Not that that matters. Steyr M95 carbine from Royal Tiger Imports. This is a straight pull rifle. These are, well, this particular one is still chambered in the original 8x50 rimmed cartridge, not to be confused with 8x50 Lebel. Very hard ammunition to find, although even if I do find it, the bore on this one is not that great. It does seem to be functional, although the Cosmoline is still keeping the bolt quite sticky. I have not cleaned this thing yet. No interesting cartouches or marks or anything like that, but it is incredibly lightweight, and I'm willing to bet that the cartridge will probably rock me like a hurricane. Remington 870. This was actually my father's. He bought it brand spanking new back in the 70s or 80s or sometime around there. He bought it specifically for duck hunting. I'm not sure how much duck hunting he actually did back in the day. I'll probably make a point to ask him because I would like knowing more about my family history. Well, we have ourselves, this right here is a Magnum rated receiver. Nice long barrel on this thing. I have no idea what the choke size is, but it does group pretty well. So possibly a cylinder or a full choke. Besides that, this right here was back when Remington still had decent quality control, and I can't remember how much this thing holds. I think it's 5+1 in the chamber. 12 gauge shotgun, universal. Can't go wrong with it. Way less recoil than that Maverick, but it's also way heavier. Alright, I have a Santa Fe Jungle Carbine. It is obviously a number 5 Jungle Carbine lookalike. This is actually built off of a number 1 Mark III receiver. This particular number 1 Mark III was from 1942. God knows what this rifle has seen. But a lot of these were imported, and I think this one was imported to California and converted to look like a Jungle Carbine. We got ourselves a big old nose cap on the front, like a muzzle flash, muzzle hider device. And besides that, the controls on this thing are going to be identical to a number 1 Mark III rifle because that's essentially what this is. This right here was my brush gun for a very long time, back whenever 303 British ammunition was very inexpensive. I definitely, absolutely regret not freaking stockpiling more of that stuff. It does take a rimmed cartridge to 303 British round, just like all of the other SMLE rifles and the Lee Enfield series. The sight on this thing, the leaf sight, has been taken off, and we do have a rear aperture that was thrown onto the charger bridge on this thing. So if you want to charge this thing using stripper clips, then you do have to move your rear sight out of the way before you can load it. Other than that, you just kind of load them one round at a time like I do. Lots of recoil, lots of noise, she goes bang. Definitely quite the potent little carbine. But I have definitely used this thing very effectively. Because it's so lightweight and so comfortable, that's one of the reasons why I bring this thing out whenever I go out either hunting or camping or something like that. This is a pretty normal go-to of mine. Russian SKS, this one's a little bit on the unusual side. This is a Izhevsk arsenal, I believe. but this is a later production Izvest arsenal, chambered in 7.62 by 39. The receiver cover right there actually has no markings on it. Oh, well, in this particular case, it looks like it has a Z on it. Ironic, huh? But we have ourselves receiver markings that do not exist as they would otherwise exist on some of the other rifles. And on the side of the receiver, we have ourselves a serial number with a letter prefix, and I do not know what those letters are, and a little star on the side of the receiver. This right here is a later production version of the Russian SKSs. These are a lot less common than the normal production SKSs that you would see that have the information stamped right on the back of the receiver cover there. Man, this thing is heavier than I remember. Yeah, it doesn't recoil that much though as a result. Semi-automatic, 7.62 by 39. Powerhouse of a cartridge. Not exactly something I'd want to bring into the end of the world, but I'd definitely take this over bolt action any day. 6.5 Carcano Troop Special. If I had to pick a favorite rifle out of my arsenal, it would probably be this one, just because, my god, this is a very nice little rifle. Nice and compact. These do have gain twist rifled barrels that were cut down, so long distance accuracy isn't going to be very good. The bullets just don't stabilize that well with the twist rate that is left inside of these barrels. Besides that, 6-shot bolt action. It takes in-block clips just like all your other Carcano series. This one does hit a little bit high. Carcanos tend to hit a little bit high, and they tend to be pretty inconsistent with where it is that they actually hit depending on your rifle. You just have to learn your particular rifles. For example, this one right here hits about 6 inches high at 100 yards, but I have another Carcano that we will explore here shortly that hits right on target at 100 yards. I do use 2.64 diameter projectiles to load for these Carcanos, and since I never shoot past 100 yards, that works just fine. However, these are a 2.68 diameter bore, and they are a controlled feed system, so I do load them via stripper clip unless I'm in a situation where I can't do that. 6.5 Carcano, nice light recoiling, nice low retort. It's not exactly a powerhouse of a round, but here in the state of Florida, it's definitely enough for me to handle whatever it is I have to handle. Alright, this is a Cavalry Carbine Carcano. It has the little bayonet on it. This particular one has a push button bayonet release, definitely better than the lever bayonet release. Unlike the Troop Special, which was a long rifle that was converted into a short rifle, this one was purpose-built as a short rifle. As a result, we have carbine-style sights on it. This particular one obviously was hit by something, some kind of explosive. All along the stock and the metalwork and whatnot, we have just pitting and whatnot from some kind of shrapnel that has destroyed this thing, and the front sight has been severely damaged, and the receiver has just gouges all over it. Whoever had this rifle did not have a very good day. So go ahead and load me around in. I will say that this one is definitely much smoother than my Troop Special model, and this is the one that hits right at point of aim. All right, there we go. 6.5 Carcano. The extractor on this one is a little weak though, so it doesn't always extract all that effectively, but I do really like this rifle. All right, 1891 finished Mosin Nagant, chambered in 7.62 by 54 rimmed. This right here is refurbished by the Finnish in 1943. That would be the continuation war. The little sling swivels are a clear indication of Finnish refurbishment. Besides that, very nice little rifle. This particular one does not have a rear sight on it, but I can still make shots with it. I've just kind of learned how to aim rifles that don't have sights on it. Don't ask me how I did that. It's a powerful rifle. It's a big rifle. It's definitely clunky and not something that I would want to use to defend my country. But hey, the Finnish did very well with these things. That and their Suomis, but I do not have one of those. Now that I'm looking at this thing, it is actually in pretty damn decent shape. If I throw a rear sight on this thing, we might actually be in business. Whenever I pick this thing up, I pick this up at a gun store, and it was mildly sporterizing. As a result, it was far less money than a Finnish Mosin would normally be. I think I paid like 350 bucks for this thing, which is the equivalent price of a refurbished 9130. Speaking of 9130, this is an unrefurbished Izvest made 9130 in 1943. God, Russia was going through some terrible times in 1943. But the 9130 was an updated version of the 1891, became slightly shorter and far more economic to produce. I picked this one up, one, because I like the two-tone handguard. This right here obviously was repaired at one point or another, but whenever I picked this up, I saw that it was unrefurbished, and I have a refurbished 9130, which we'll go ahead and cover here in a little while. But I wanted an unrefurbished one. You know, this right here did not go through the Russians' refurbishment process. This just came like right from the Russians' hands, you know, battling whatever it is that they were battling, into the hands of the American market, and thus into my hands. So it takes the same cartridge as the Mosin we just fired, 7.62 by 54 Rind. And the trigger on these absolutely sucks. Ruger Mini 14, you guys have seen this on the channel plenty of times. I believe that this is an M14 flash hider. It might be a grenade launcher attachment. Either way, it's held together with some parts that I got from my finished Mosin. I have a 5-round magazine inside of this thing, but it does take an external mag, so you could go ahead and load this with whatever size magazine you deem necessary. In this particular case, 5-round, because, hey, it's easier to maneuver out here. I also use this thing for hunting pretty regularly. Semi-automatic platform, this is a non-scary looking rifle. If you are in a situation where you cannot get like an AR platform or something like that, you do have a nice rubber butt pad on this thing, which absolutely helps with the intense dramatic recoil of your 223 round. This is a 183 series rifle, so it is long before Ruger's modifications to make these rifles more accurate. As a result, this is about a 3 MOA rifle, which is still definitely better than I can fire myself. Well, I couldn't really see my target on that one. I don't really like the aperture sight on this particular one, because this particular aperture sight is a little on the small side. I know that they make bigger ones. I'll probably end up getting myself one of those. Alright, well, that's all of what I have for this round, so I'll have to drive back and grab myself another round of stuff to show off. God, this is going to be such a long video. Buckle up, guys, we still have a very long way to go. This is a single shot shotgun Winchester model 37A. It's a 20 gauge, break open. I have a zip tie holding this handguard on. I mostly use this thing for like shotgun adapters and whatnot. Put a shotgun adapter in there and you can load like 357 or 38 or 9mm or 45, or there's a lot of options that you could load into a shotgun adapter. Not the most accurate coming from this without sights, and since the shotgun adapter is only about this long, not a whole lot of barrel length. But if you want some universability with your shotgun that could fire, you know, potentially even more things than just regular shotgun shells, which is already incredibly universal, then a shotgun adapter would absolutely be a good way to go. So this right here is a very inexpensive little shotgun. I can't remember how much I paid for this thing. Actually, I don't think I paid anything for it. I'm pretty sure that this was a gift to the family from one of my father's friends. But anyway, very simple, single shot, pull the trigger, hammer goes down. After that, automatic ejector, and it spits out the shotgun shell. And here we go. This right here is another one in the arsenal. Keeping with the theme of shotguns, this is a Winchester 1897. This right here is pretty much the sequel to the 1893, which was a pump-action black powder shotgun. The 1897 was incredibly popular, and it was used in World War I as the trench gun. This is obviously a commercial version, full-length barrel, no heat shield, no anything like that. This particular one, originally these shotguns had a 2 5/8 chambering, if memory serves me correctly, but this one has been reamed out for 2 3/4, so definitely something that you would want to do if you wanted to run any real amount of shells through this thing. I don't have to push that button this time. But the bolt on this thing comes out of the back of the receiver, something that does make some people uncomfortable. I have seen some people kind of like stray away from that because, I mean, you still have the same thing happening in your modern Winchester shotguns. It's just encased into the back of the receiver. So, yep, there we go. This right here does have a slam fire option. If I did have more than one round, then I could just like hold down the trigger and pump and it would consistently shoot, but I'm not going to do that because we're short on time. So there's me shooting that. I just got hit by the bolt in my hand. Fantastic. So now for the rest of the video, I'll have to deal with that minute amount of pain. All right, Winchester 1897, wonderful. Alright, this is my very first rifle that was actually a rifle, Mosin Nagant 9130. I picked this up for 80 bucks many years ago, and I fired probably about 40,000 plus rounds or so through this thing. Made a whole video about that. The inside of this rifle basically looks like basically looks like a gravel road. Very little life left in this barrel, and I'm sure, as you could imagine, it is not accurate at all, but let's still see if we can hit our steel. That hit a little low, but damn, did we get close. This right here probably has about 10 MOA at 50 yards, so probably about 20 MOA at 100 yards. Sounds like we have some kind of aircraft in the background. You'll have to forgive that noise. This right here is a sporterized Carcano. I believe it was in 1891 that was chopped down because the barrel length is not equivalent to the barrel length that we would get in any of the Carcano carbine models. The rear sight on this is a full-length rifle sight. So just because of the full-size rifle sight on this thing and the length of the barrel, I believe that this was sporterized by somebody who cut down the barrel and not done in any factory setting. My cavalry carbine, which had a straight handle bolt on it, was originally the bolt that came from this rifle, but it is now in the bottom of a big pile of guns. So I didn't feel like digging it back out. So that's why there's no bolt inside of this rifle. Whenever I fire actual 2.68 diameter projectiles, which is what the bore size is of this rifle can be quite accurate. However, the 2.64 diameter projectiles out of this particular Carcano, it just does not stabilize very well with the length of rifle the length of rifle barrel that was cut with this, and as a result I do get tumbling out at about 100 yards. Besides that, 6-shot bolt action rifle, same in-block clip that the other Carcanos take. The stock has been sporterized, but I believe it is the original stock because we do have some markings down here that were sanded off but are still kind of visible, and we do have ourselves a cleaning rod area right there. Alright, this is this one. If you've made it this far into the video, let me know so I know that I'm not just blatantly wasting my time for no reason here, which I'm sure I probably am. Most people are not going to make it to this point. This right here is a 1917 Enfield US 30-06, and obviously it has been sporterized. So the front sight on this thing is, you know, just a regular old front sight that would come with the rifle. Rear sight was removed, and whoever drilled and tapped the holes in this receiver had a little bit too much to drink because they are not straight at all, and mounting a scope to this thing is absolutely out of the question. So what I did was I took the rear sight off of some kind of Ruger, and I just kind of screwed it on there, and that is my rear sight. And to my surprise, it actually lines up pretty decently. This is a cock on close action, very strong action. I believe I have a history video of the 1917, so I don't want to go into that in this video because that would just take a very long time. All right, well, we made our hit on target. Wow, 30-06. Kicks pretty good. Oh no, my camera. Well, 30-06 kicked me pretty good, and I guess it hit you guys pretty damn good too. I'm sorry, audience. Are you okay? Get off of me. There's something crawling on me now. Oh, that was terrible. Look at me. Look at me, audience. You gotta calm down and get yourself together now. Calm down. It's cool. It's cool. You're fine. Smack yourself out of it. We gotta keep going. Grab your rifle. Get moving. Alright, 6.5 Vetterli. This right here is a Vetterli rifle, originally chambered in 11.5 millimeter, I think. Originally black powder rifle, rechambered for 6.5 Carcano. There's a barrel sleeve inside of it. This particular one is dated 1877. One of the older rifles that I have. This particular one is pretty unsafe. The trigger mechanism doesn't quite work right, and as a result, well, whenever I close this thing up, I used to think that the trigger was just very good on this thing, but it turns out it's just not very engaged at all. So right now we are unloaded. This is an unloaded rifle. But, well, let me show you guys what happens whenever I apply a little bit of force to this or jostle it around some. It fires. So that just fired my Italian rifle here, so I do have to go and do some work to the trigger mechanism to make this safe to shoot. Besides that, you don't want to run full power 6.5 Carcano ammunition through this. It's just not designed for that kind of system. But, yeah, cartouche on this thing. We got... This is an original stock, all sorts of markings on it. This is from RTI. The bore on this thing is actually pretty decent, believe it or not. I don't think there's anything else I could say about this rifle. Rossi R92 357 Magnum. This right here is one that I use very frequently on the channel because I like it so much. It's a little carbine length version, holds 9 rounds of 357 or 38 special. I have this zeroed out for my hand-loaded 38 special, but I'm loading a 357 into this thing for the sake of this video because, hey, 20,000 subscribers. So I have no idea if I'm actually going to hit my target with this. I did! Haha! How do you like that? So that was a 147 grain Fiocchi factory load. So this is obviously just like the 44 Magnum, based off of the Winchester 1892 action. Same safeties and whatnot in this thing, same setup of everything, just a little bit smaller, very lightweight, very compact. This would make a fantastic everyday do-everything rifle. Alright, VZ2447, the firing pin inside of this thing is, well, I'm having some issues with this rifle. This is from RTI, not functional as of right now, but I do have some parts coming that is going to make it functional. The bore on this one is good. We have both, like, last ditch style production, but also like new age Mauser style production with this rifle. I'm not sure if this was just kind of thrown together. As a matter of fact, I can probably, yep, it definitely was. This is a force matched rifle. But anyway, we got ourselves a stamped magazine guard, and it looks like stamped trigger housing as well. That is definitely not milled, but our leaf sight here has a what would you call those? Sight elevation markings. That's what I'm going to call them. Sight elevation markings on both the top and the bottom of the leaf. So just like your early pattern Mausers, we do have a slot cut out for a front sight guard that would normally be on this rifle, but is not. As a matter of fact, none of my Mausers have a front sight guard on it. I'm probably gonna have to look into get myself some of those. This particular one has problems with the bolt. The firing pin is not dropping far enough, but also dropping too far. It's the wrong size firing pin. I have one coming that is going to fix that problem. I had a lot of people telling me it's a M48 bolt stuck inside of a 24-47. Those bolts are interchangeable. You can take the bolt right out of one and put it in the other, and ask me how I know. I've literally done it myself. Besides that, there are some cracks in the stock, so I don't want to fire this thing until I get those fixed. The stock is matching, the bolt is not. Besides that, that's about all I have to say about this thing. For the money I spent, I'm just glad I got a good bore with it. Alright, number 4, Mark 1 Enfield. This right here is one I picked up from my local gun store quite a while ago. I think it came out to about 400 bucks if memory serves me. 303 British rounds. This right here is definitely the smoothest cycling Enfield that I own, and I definitely like the aperture sights on this thing a lot better than the leaf sight on like the number 1 rifle. I definitely prefer the aperture sight just because I'm blind. Alright, definitely an accurate rifle. I have shot this rifle out at some pretty impressive distances and shoot pretty regularly with it. I find that with 150 grain projectiles, this thing hits right on, but of course, because this right here is the last ditch style of rear sight, where it's just a flip sight, the minimum zero on this thing is 300 yards. So if I use the actual military loaded 174 grain projectile, I believe that's the military loading that this is zeroed for, it actually hits considerably high at 100 yards, or in this case at the 40 yards that we're at. So 150 grain projectile seems to hit pretty much on point. Besides that, the strap on this thing is actually a guitar strap that I threw on this thing many years ago, just so I would have a strap on it. This was something I got before I even really got around to doing my gun channel. I believe my gun channel did exist, but I wasn't like investing myself into it, so I didn't really care that much about the aesthetics of it. But yeah, that's a guitar strap on this number 1, and I never took it off, and it's still there and still working. Alright, Remington rolling block. This one has been rechambered for 28 gauge. Originally this was a black powder being made, and there's a date on this somewhere, 1883. So this was a black powder. However, as long as I'm using like very lightweight, low recoil 28 gauge shotgun shells, then we don't have any problems. I have stuck plenty of shells through this thing to feel comfortable shooting it. But anyway, Remington rolling block was very, what would I call it? very universal back in the day. This was basically as universal as Mauser was whenever Mauser became a thing. Single shot, very simple action. The hammer, whenever it falls, that is what actually locks the chamber in place. Not the strongest system by today's standards, but considering the time period where this existed, it was definitely strong enough. The one thing that I don't like about it is if you have your hammer cocked and you are looking to fire but you don't have a target yet, let's say you're going through the woods or something and you hit a limb on a tree or something and it pops your breech open. Well, now you have an open breech and well, that would be a problem. But besides that, Kablamski, she fires 28 gauge. I wouldn't want to run like Magnum slugs or anything through this thing, but with this lightweight stuff, then this seems to work just fine, no problem. Whenever I'd gotten this thing, I was just kind of debating to myself, you know, I should have a rolling block on this channel, and I just so happened to have come across this one down at my local gun store. They tend to get some really cool stuff in. This says AR.O1883, and there's a crown above it, and on this side it says CN5. If anyone can tell me what that means, I would definitely appreciate it. Alright, 7.7 Jap rifle. This is one that I brought back to life. It was a gift from a buddy of mine. Whenever given it to me, he was like, there's no way that you're going to get this thing up and going again. And I was like, hold my beer. The stock has obviously been handcrafted on this rifle. You just tell by the way that the very crude marks on this thing are. Probably done by some Japanese soldier in some hut somewhere. Maybe he had to make his stock to repair his rifle, or maybe he just had like a bunch of leftover remains of a rifle and was like, I need a rifle to fend off the Americans. I don't know what the story is, I wasn't there, but we do have a lot of really crude welding, really crude woodwork. This was not a full last-ditch rifle, but man, it was pretty gosh darn close. Chambered in 7.7 Jap. This is not an easy rifle to shoot. Ammunition can be quite difficult to find, but I do have some ammunition, so I may as well send a round down range. Alright, I don't like the aperture sight on this one since it's not right in your face like, say, the infield would be. The only reason why I like the infield's aperture sight is because I'm blind and the sight is right up in my face, so I can see it easier. However, this one is like a foot away from my face and it kind of blurs, so I'm definitely less accurate with this rifle. Ow! And 7.7 Jap definitely recoils a little bit more than the 6.5 Jap, especially out of this lighter weight rifle. This rifle is not very heavy at all, and I don't know what kind of wood that they used for it, but man, this is quite the lightweight rifle. I bet it feels right at home here in the jungles of Florida. Alright, bolt-action shotguns are definitely way less mainstream than pump-action shotguns, so whenever I break this thing out, I get a lot of people who are like, what the hell is that? I'm like, boy, oh boy, let me educate you here. This is a J.C. Higgins model 583.20. I did not come up with that name. So this is a 12-gauge shotgun, tube-fed, bolt-action. I have stuck many rounds through this thing. You do want to be careful with these things. They do have notoriety of the receiver cracking at the back, and if that happens and you stick like a powerful load through this thing, that cracked receiver will break off and you will eat the bolt. It will fly back into your face. A lot of people say that happens whenever the screw right here is taken out. Well, that screw, all that does is retain it whenever you open the bolt and the system is unlocked. That screw does absolutely nothing whenever you are firing the shotgun. That is held in place by this recoil lug right here on this receiver end. And if that is cracked, then you're gonna have a bad time. Speaking of bad time, I guess it probably helps if you chamber this thing. There we go. All right. Mosin Nagant M44. This right here is a shortened version of the 9130/1891 pattern. Same action, same basically everything. Definitely a better machine quality than the wartime 9130s. This right here is a 1947 production. Has a bayonet on the side that you can flip out. I believe that these were zeroed with the bayonet flipped out, so if you have the bayonet in, I think that the accuracy is diminished slightly. I have seen tests done, and I think 8mm Mauser Man even did one. I recommend going to check out his channel if you haven't already. But whenever this thing fires, because of that short barrel firing this full power rifle round, it absolutely rattles the teeth in my skull. Ow! The side-by-side here reflected a lot of that energy back at me, and I noticed that whenever I pulled that trigger, the backblast was way more than it normally is, and it normally is quite the powerhouse. This right here looks like it goes out to 100 yard zero with this rear sight. It's just one of those elevation adjustment leaf sights. Minimum zero is 100 yards. Compact rifle. If it wasn't for the muzzle blast, then this thing would actually be pretty damn decent to shoot. Alright, 30-40 Krag. I wanted one of these for the channel for a while until I finally got around to getting myself one, and I absolutely fell in love with this thing. It takes a 308 diameter bullet, so I can reload for this pretty easily as long as I have the brass. Large rifle primers, and depending on the powder that you're using, typically around 30 to 35 grains of powder, depending on the powder. Like, you'll have to go and look up what your specific powder needs are. But because of that relatively low power cartridge, the recoil on this is not that bad, but it's definitely powerful enough to handle whatever it is I'd have to handle here in the state of Florida. Obviously, this one has been sporterized. We do have some cutouts in this thing in case I ever felt like mounting a scope. However, the cutouts are absolutely not straight at all, so I would have to do some finagling to mount a scope. We have red field rear sight, which I really like because I can actually get a better sight picture with my blind eyes than I could with a standard sight from one of these things. Anyone who's ever looked at one of the sights on one of these old rifles just knows how terrible it is. These load from a capsule style magazine on the side of the receiver. You just kind of take your round and you set it right in there, just like that. Close that up, and now my round is sitting right there, ready to be pushed forward and into the chamber. The action on these are buttery smooth, like very, very smooth. Like if you took two planes of glass, lathered them in like oil, and rubbed them face to face together. That is how smooth this rifle is. Yeah, it's powerful, but it's not overwhelmingly powerful. The one downside I see with this is the extractor on these tend to be a little on the weak side, because right there is your, well, the ejector, not the extractor. Right there is your ejector, and it is a moving part, and it is just a little on the frail side, and those do tend to not hold up to the test of time. This particular one, I think that there's a date on here somewhere. No, I don't see one, but seeing as this is an 1898 U.S. Krag rifle, it is going to be quite old. I believe that in 1903, whenever they started the Springfield production, sometime around there, they stopped producing these. Alright, 4570 trapdoor Springfield from the same time era as our rolling block. Basically just like after the Civil War, but before the new century, just that time period, there was a lot of firearms development, and this right here is one of the things that came up. They wanted to essentially copy their 1861 Springfield pattern, like their muzzle loading Springfield, but they wanted to copy that general aesthetic, but have a breech loader design, and they came up with this. This is a 4570. Normally fires, when the rifle was designed, a 405 grain bullet. 405 grain bullets, 70 grains of black powder, 45 caliber diameter. It would travel at around 13 to 1400 feet per second, depending on the barrel length that you were using. This right here is a smokeless powder load, and it is dramatically less powerful than the 4570 that would normally be used. Yep, there's about as powerful as a 44 Magnum. It's just much easier to run this ammunition. I love this part. Yeet! I almost caught it. Much easier to run this ammunition on the gun range than it is to run actual full power 4570 loads. Alright, 6.5 Jap. Obviously this one has been sporterized, still has the mum on it. People tell me to unsporterize this rifle, and I'm like, well, yeah, I probably will at one point or another, but I like the length of the barrel, and I can make jokes about needing to compensate for stuff and whatnot. I have brought this hunting before, never actually taken anything with it, but I have brought it hunting before. Very lightweight. The length is kind of pushing it, because this is quite it's a full-length rifle. But whenever I'm out there in the jungles of Florida and whatnot, I really have to maneuver my way with this thing through those jungles. That being said, 6.5 Jap, I do have to reload it myself, because 6.5 Jap is even harder to find than 7.7, and 7.7 is already very difficult to find. But 6.5 Jap, I do load it myself. This is a 140 grain projectile, and it should be traveling, I can't remember. It's a full power rifle load. This right here is one of my hunting rounds. It's a hollow point round. But even with that, that is a delightfully light shooting round. Very nice, and this is actually a little bit spicier than a normal military loading. Alright, whenever I got this off of whoever the hell I got it off of, They thought it was a 7.7 Jap rifle. Well, this right here is actually just a training rifle, and it's definitely not something that you would want to put live ammunition through. This is a Type 38 kind of looking, Type 99 kind of looking rifle. This right here is actually one that was for the Imperial Navy. We have a little anchor right there instead of the typical Emperor's mum that you would normally see. This one has seen better days. It's falling apart. It's bent up. It's it's definitely seen better days. That's not even doing anything anymore. But whenever I had bought this rifle off of this guy, he was like, yeah, it's a 7.7 Jap rifle. If you want it, I'll give it to you nice and cheap. And I was like, all right, I'll go ahead and take it. And on the rear of the stock here, we have some markings, and it literally says live ammunition is prohibited or something like that. Translates to something roughly to that. And I was like, this is not a rifle that you want to fire live ammo from. Now, normally you look at the bolt and you can tell if it's a training rifle or not because you look as to whether or not the bolt has locking lugs, and this one had locking lugs, so hey, fantastic. But then I look down the barrel and there's no rifling in the barrel, and I'm like, that's a red flag right there. And I look up the markings and I'm like, that's a red flag right there. So apparently these bolts right here did have locking lugs, but they are still training rifles. And so as a result, I have gotten some parts off of this rifle, but besides that, you see the state of the rifle. And it's a fun one to show off. These are not very common, the Arisaka training rifles that have the little anchor on them as opposed to the Emperor's Mum. Not something that you commonly see. So it is nice to have something as much of an oddity as this is, even if it does not actually fire ammunition. Would make a cool wall hanger if I, you know, got it together and whatnot. But I kind of like keeping it completely torn apart, because if something happens and this is no longer in my possession, I want someone to decide, I don't want to fire this rifle even if it does fire bullets, because they probably don't speak Japanese, and I had to look it up myself, and I would not have known that's what that was if I did not know what to look for. Markings right here on the stock, I don't know what those are, probably some kind of inventory marking or something like that. Not positive, but that is this rifle. It's a long rifle, and the stock and whatnot looks like Type 38 style equipment. However, the rear sight tells me Type 99. However, the receiver tells me Type 38. However, the bolt tells me, like, it's a mix combination of both rifles, I guess. Alright, high point 9mm carbine. You guys have seen this before on the channel. I have ran, I don't know, several hundred rounds through this thing at this point. I don't have any 9mm ammunition out here with me, but I do know that this thing does run fine and it's reliable and accurate, and I don't think I've had a single malfunction with it since I've been using it. I could be wrong, maybe there's one or two examples, but not enough to really come to mind. So this is a very nice little rifle. We got Picatinny rail on top, got Picatinny rail on bottom. Obviously I threw a little flashlight on this thing. It doesn't really serve much purpose. I don't use this much beyond a range toy. If you felt like throwing a vertical grip on this thing, then you could do that. With the Picatinny rail up here, you can actually take this rear sight assembly off and throw any kind of optic or red dot that you want on this thing. 9mm is pretty cheap and easy to get, so you can go ahead and get yourself whatever kind of ammunition you want for this thing. There is a recoil pad on the back if the severe recoil for 9mm is too much for you to handle. Alright, high tower 45 ACP. This is actually a high point chassis inside of a high tower configuration, which actually turns it into a bullpup. So this is a 45 ACP bullpup that, well, I use it on the gun range. I wouldn't trust my life to it for any practical sense, but our optic on this thing, we got a little red dot on it. Center it lead down range, smack onto our target. I don't know how, whenever I got this, the battery was already in it, so I don't know how much battery life is left in this thing. Not much I can say about this one. Picatinny rail on the bottom, hang on to the top. You can mount whatever sights or optics you want on this thing. Magazine release is right here in the trigger guard, so it's nice and quick to detach your magazine to go ahead and reload. We got a bunch of safeties on this thing. We got the original high point safety, but we also have a secondary safety right here in the trigger guard, or if you felt like doing so, there's a lock open safety right here on the charging handle, which you can go ahead and use to lock this thing open. It looks like you could swap the charging handle around to make this left-handed if you felt like doing so, and with the massive brass deflector on this thing, I don't think that you'd have issues shooting this thing left-handed. Could be wrong, haven't tried it, but that is this bullpup. Alright, Volunteer Enterprises, Commando Mark III, I think that's the designation on this. Yeah, Commando Mark III. This here is obviously a Thompson M1A1 lookalike. We do have some Thompson style, like 1927 style attributions on this thing, but obviously the lower receiver on this is definitely not reminiscent of a Thompson. There's a lot going on with this where someone who actually knows what they're looking at would be like, what the hell am I looking at? Yeah, there's some stuff going on with this one. But rear receiver, ugly as hell. It takes grease gun mags. I mean, 45 caliber. For a Thompson look-alike, this right here, these are not very expensive, definitely way less expensive than like an auto ordnance actual Thompson. So you can pick up one of these for substantially cheaper. These right here are a straight blowback design, so they do have a little bit of recoil behind them. And my front sight, yes, is just a hose clamp with a nail in it, because the front sight on this thing has long since gone missing. But I mean, it works. Sends lead down range. Fired it. There you go. Now, I will say that the magazine catch on this one, or maybe the magazine itself, is a little on the worn out side, and you can like jumble them free. Get out of here, you. You can like jumble them free. Getting attacked by a horsefly here. But if I were to stick this in to where it would normally lock in place, I can like wiggle it around and it will eventually work its way out. So not the most reliable system, not something I'd want to bet my life and liberty on. So you'll find whenever I shoot this thing, I hold it by the mag versus by the handguard, because whenever this has any amount of weight in it, under recoil, it will actually wiggle itself out, and the firearm will stop working. Probably going to get myself another grease gun mag, see if that solves the issue. If not, then I'll probably get inside of here and do some filing and see if I can get that issue resolved. All right, that's everything in this load. Let me go grab us another load of guns. I'll be right back. I tell you what, I feel you, Demolition Ranch, whenever you had to do this, because holy crap. We're probably about halfway done at this point. Alright, so this right here is a TOZ 120 something, 122. Yeah, TOZ 122 or TO3 122. Chambered in 7.62 by 51/308 Winchester. Whenever I picked this up, I wanted something that was chambered in, 308 and not just 7.62 NATO, because you don't want to run 308 consecutively in 7.62 NATO rifles. I wanted something I knew that could handle it. This has iron sights on it, which is something I definitely wanted, but you can also mount a scope to this thing, which is also something I definitely wanted. Bolt action rifle, the magazine holds 6 rounds of ammunition. However, there's like a hunk of plastic inside of the magazine, and I feel like if I took that out, it would then hold 10 rounds of ammunition. I'm not sure if that was done for imports or whatever. This right here was made by Tula over there in Russia, so the same factory that has been making rifles for many, many, many years at this point. I wish I had a Tula Mosin Nagant, because that would be pretty cool to have to compare to this thing, but I don't. So I just have this right here, which apparently is based off of a sporting bolt-action shotgun over there in Russia, but chambered in 308 7.62 NATO, this bolt-action rifle has definitely served its purposes. I have not shot anything, like I have not taken any game with it though. Although I have gone hunting with it, it's just never worked out in my favor. 308 ammunition is definitely powerful enough to take care of whatever it is I would need to take care of around here in the state of Florida. This is a good universal do-everything rifle. This is a Winchester Model 70, chambered in 270 Winchester, and this is actually one that I got off of a friend of mine who was in need of some money, and we made a deal. I bought some guns off of him with the caveat that whenever he gets his money back and he gets himself to a place where he could buy them back, he will buy them off of me for the same price that I bought them off of him. So now I have myself a couple of rifles, and you guys will see more from this guy that I had picked up. But 270 Winchester have not brought this hunting. I know that this is an accurate rifle. There's some issues with the scope that I have to get around to fixing. The zoomage, whatever that's called. How you actually zoom the scope in and out is stuck on the actual scope mount of this thing, so I do have to go through and I got to fix that. I got to reposition this and just set it up properly to where it's not going to be stuck on the scope mount, so I can actually zoom this thing in and out. Besides that, this right here, I believe I have it zeroed out for 100 grain projectiles, but I could be wrong about that. I can't remember off the top of my head what I actually zeroed this thing to. Polymer stock, the stock feels halfway decent. I'm not sure of the year of manufacture. I want to say the 1970s. I think I looked that up many, many years ago, but I could be wrong about that. Just looking it up with the serial number. Not much more to say about this. Decent little rifle, lightweight, got a decent sling on it. It's dirty, definitely has not been stored in the most ideal of conditions, but other than that, it's a decent rifle. It has served me well for what I've used it for, but I have not used it for much. The scope, I think, is a Bushnell. There we go, Bushnell scope. It is a 4 question mark 3, I think it's 4, yeah, 4-12 power scope. Decent little scope, decent little rifle. Definitely gets my stamp of approval. Russian SKS, chambered in 7.62x39. This is a Russian refurb, which you can see from these hash marks that are engraved into the stock there. This is an Izhevsk arsenal, I believe. Yes, Izhevsk arsenal. We got ourselves a star, little arrow inside of it. That might be Tula, but I think that's Izhevsk. As you can see, this SKS, unlike the other one, does have that information on the receiver cover right here, as opposed to on the side of the stock. We are missing our star. We got proof marks. We got rear sight. It's a tangent sight, leaf sight. Missing bayonet on this particular one, but I don't much care about that. I have taken this thing hunting. I have not killed anything with it, I don't think. But I have taken this hunting. 7.62x39, since I don't really shoot past 300 yards, is more than adequate for somebody like me. So I do have a couple of rounds inside of this one. May as well send this downrange. I do like the fact that this right here has basically a 2-stage trigger in it, meaning you pull the trigger back and you have some creep, but then you hit a wall, and once you break through that wall, you get nice accurate shots. 10-round stock magazine inside of this thing. I'm not going to throw aftermarket mags in it because those tend to be very unreliable. I really like the color of the wood on this. Alright, well, not much more I can say about this particular SKS. It's just a Russian SKS, and I definitely enjoy it. This is a Swiss Vetterli rifle. This is an M78 model 1878. It's a bolt action rifle that is currently missing its bolt because it is a rimfire rifle that I'm currently converting into centerfire so I can actually fire it. The cartridge this takes is a 41 Swiss. It's about equivalent in power to a 44 Magnum. So as I'm sure you guys can see, this right here loads from the side, much like your lever action rifles. Doesn't quite have the King's Gate system, but it is a side loading tube-fed magazine system, but instead of operating with lever action, you would normally operate it with a bolt, which is not in here. Like I said, I am converting it so I can actually get around to shooting it. So you guys will see more of this one on the channel. Obviously, this one has been sporterized. The bayonet lug is quite a deal farther from the muzzle than it probably should be, but I don't much care about that. I picked this up for not a lot of money. Ooh, there is a marking on the stock I have not seen before. D3 Cross CI. Very interesting. I do not know what that is. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me. And I don't see any other markings on the stock. This is Waffen Fabric Burn. Waffen Fabric. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, although somebody's going to go in the comments and scream at me for it. STG-44. Before you guys get all excited about this one, this is a GSG STG-44, not an original one. This particular one is chambered in 22 long rifle. Much less expensive to get one of these in 22 than it is to getting actual in 8x33 Kurtz. So the reason why I got this is because although this is not an original, I can pick this up and show it to basically anyone, and they're like, I know exactly what that is. That's one of my dream guns from my XYZ favorite video game or my XYZ favorite movie. And I'm like, yeah, I have one of these, and it fires 22. Nice and easy to shoot. You want to come out to the range with me and plink with this thing at 100 yards? And they're like, oh yeah, and because it's 22 long rifle and because this thing is so heavy, they have absolutely no problem handling the basically non-existent recoil, almost negative recoil that this thing would produce. The bolt reciprocating is more recoil than the cartridge itself puts out. But yeah, STG-44 and 22 long rifle, this is one of my favorite things to show people because, well, anyone who knows anything about video games or movies or anything like that basically knows what this is, and it's not something that you see all the time. So, man, I love showing this, and like people's faces like light up, and they're all happy to see it, and it's just, it was worth every penny that I paid for it. Keeping on the trend of German guns, this right here is a Sporterized Kar 98. This is actually, well, I'll show you guys my other Kar 98, but this is actually a early war / pre-war production, depending on when it is that you decide the World War II actually started. This is a 1938 produced rifle, so if you're going by when Germany invaded Poland, then it would be pre-war. If you're going by whenever the Japanese did what they did to China to really start what happened with World War II, then it would definitely be an early war. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. We have early war things going on with this rifle. We have sight elevation adjustments on the bottom of our leaf sight here. We have no sight hood cover on the front sight. It's not designed for one. There's no cutout for one or anything like that. There's just things going on with this that indicate very early, or like early war style production. Obviously the stock is not original. This is a Sporterized stock, and the trigger guard is a winter trigger guard that I actually got from a VZ24 maybe, I can't quite remember. So that is not going to be original either. This is pretty much just a throw together rifle that I threw together from a bunch of Mauser parts that I had all over the place. But the chamber in this is a little on the pitted side, so extraction is not that easy, which is why I don't really bring this thing out to use very much. And I'm pretty sure that the magazine spring in this thing is broken as well. But it will fire. This is chambered in 8mm Mauser, and it will go bang if you put a round in it and try to send it through. But like I said, extraction doesn't always work with this rifle. Alright, this is my non-Sporterized Kar 98. This is a 1944 production. Originally, this was in that stock and that was in this stock, but I swapped them around because that had pitting inside of the chamber and whatnot in the barrel, and this one did not. So this right here is actually a fitting fit for this stock. This stock is a mid to late war stock because it is a laminate plywood as opposed to like the walnut stock that your early Mausers were made from. That doesn't really say anything negative about this rifle, but just the way that the nose cap and whatnot is set up, this is definitely mid-war setup, and it's not an early war configuration like that rifle there was. That rifle was obviously thrown into this stock as a throw-together rifle, and I did not like that. I wanted as accurate of a rifle as possible, so I went through and I built myself a mid to late war rifle using what I had available to me. I do not have a sight hood on this one yet. I do intend to get one. I'm probably going to get me a bayonet to fit this one as well. But besides that, 8mm Mauser. As a matter of fact, I think I have a round over here. I have one single 8mm Mauser round here. This is Turkish surplus ammunition. And it actually fired. Every now and then I'll get duds and hang fires with that stuff. Alright. It's also very smelly. But it is corrosive, so I will have to clean this rifle, but I had to clean this rifle anyway because I've already fired corrosive ammo through it. Alright, Sporterized Carl Gustav Swedish Mauser, chambered in 6.5 by 55. A very light recoiling round, but very powerful as well. Very similar to 6.5 Creedmoor, which is why I don't own a 6.5 Creedmoor, because I already own one of these. And whenever if I were to go out and spend money on 6.5 Creedmoor, like a rifle for that, the amount of money I'd spend on that would give me quite a bit of ammunition for this. And I like this rifle. 6.5 Swede is just so, it's been around for so long, and basically everybody has everything figured out about it. But this right here is Sporterized. I believe it's a M96, but it's a Carl Gustav rifle. I'm sure somebody will tell me what model that actually is. But I get people that tell me, hey man, unsporterize that rifle. And I don't think that they realize what goes into unsporterizing a rifle. So let's look at what would be here to unsporterize. Well, the barrel's been cut down, so I can't use the barrel because the barrel would be sitting inside of the wood stock. I can't use the receiver because the receiver's been cut for a scope mount. I can't use the bolt because the bolt has been heavily customized, and I can't use the stock because that's obviously not original. I might be able to use the trigger guard here. Maybe. I don't see any sporterization with that, but I mean, yeah, just unsporterizing this right here would not be a viable option. Besides that, shoots great. I've shot a ton of 6.5 Swede out of this thing. I have not taken this one hunting. It's a little on the heavy side. I don't know if I will take it hunting unless I'm like taking it to a place where like I'm sitting down and not moving, or like somewhere that requires nice long range. But this right here is a very flat shooting round, so long range would be good. But for the most part here in Florida, where my biggest shot is going to be at 50 to maybe 100 yards because I'm hunting in the jungles of Florida, yeah, I don't need, you know, a cartridge that is designed to hit out to 800 yards point blank range. That's hyperbole, by the way. I'm sure somebody's going to go in the comments and be like, no, it's not designed for that. Who do you think you are? Spreading false information. Guys, I'm having fun. It's hyperbole. Take a joke. Speaking of jokes, this is a Maverick 88. Yes, Maverick 88. I wasn't sure if it was Maverick or Mossberg, but a Maverick 88 12-gauge shotgun. This is the Easter Sun Gauge. You guys have seen this before on the channel. What I used to do with this shotgun is I would like spray paint it and decorate it for whatever holiday it was that I was making a special on, and we'd go out and we'd blow some stuff up with it. There's still some green on this whenever it was St. Patrick's Day, and I think I may have done some other things with it. I can't quite remember. But anyway, I had gotten sick. Like, I had a stroke in 2021, and I was under the impression I was not going to make it. And this project basically died. I might revive it now that I'm definitely doing better than I was. But this is still the Easter Sun Gauge. We have Easter coming up, so I might keep it the Easter Sun Gauge until, like, Easter. And then after Easter, I might, like, turn it into something else with whatever the next holiday is going to be. I think that would be the 4th of July here in the United States. But anyway, I just spray paint this thing and decorate it. The barrel on this thing, this was obviously like a boat gun or something, because this is just rusted out and pitted, and it has been absolutely obliterated. And I don't feel bad about spray painting it at all. But anyway, where's that catch there? I do fire this thing. I've blown tons of stuff up with it. I wouldn't exactly trust heavy magnum loads out of it, but the birdshot and whatnot seems to be okay on this thing. The barrel is my biggest worry, because although you can't see it with all the paint, it is quite rippled and pitted and whatnot, which is why I would not trust heavy-duty stuff out of it. Behold one of my favorite Mausers. This is an Oviedo Mauser 7.62 Setme, technically 7.62 NATO actually. I run 7.62 NATO through this rifle. I have ran thousands of rounds of 7.62 NATO through this rifle, and it's still kicking. No headspace issues, no anything like that. People tell me all the time the Spanish metal or something like that will stretch over time with 7.62 NATO. Well, I've got, I don't know, 5,000 rounds or so through this rifle. I've been shooting it for a long time. No headspace issues, no signs of overpressure, no bulging of the round or anything like that. I've stuck a lot of ammo through this, and you guys have seen this on the channel plenty of times. I really like, there we go, magazine is a little on the wonky side, but I really like the tiger striping on the stock on this thing. You probably can't see that all that well with the lighting that we have, but trust me, it's a gorgeous stock, and the finish on this thing actually is kind of a deep finish. I don't think that it's a refurbishment or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it's factory, but whenever the light hits this thing, man, it just reflects through that tiger striping absolutely beautifully. And 7.62 NATO as of right now is still something that you can very easily and readily get. Who knows what's going to happen whenever the United States gets their 6.8 cartridge adopted? Maybe NATO's going to end up adopting that. I don't know, but I still think that 7.62 NATO is going to be very available and on the market. These rifles are not expensive. You can pick one of these up for like, hell, sub 300 bucks to get yourself a decent one. This particular one, I think I won this at an auction for 100 bucks or something like that, but that was a while ago. Alright, I forgot about the recoil on this. Really not that bad considering the power of 7.62 NATO, but this is also a pretty lightweight Mauser, so it does have a little bit of a bite to it. This right here can feed from stripper clips. It does have a little stripper clip guide right there. Just push those rounds in and you're good to go. It is a cock on close action, 93 action. Besides that, not much more to say about this one. Alright, this right here is a very generic 22 long rifle. I have several of these, but I'm only going to bring out one. This is a Glenfield Model 60. I know I have Marlins and I have Rugers, and I have a bunch of stuff like that. They're either going to be tube-fed mag, like this right here is a tube-fed mag, kind of like what Henry does, or they're going to have some kind of box magazine, kind of like what Ruger does, but you just put your .22 long rifle in, pull this back, let it go forward, semi-automatic. This one holds 17 rounds, I think. I like the stock on it. It's accurate. It's kind of reliable. Definitely needs cleaned. I've been shooting this thing since I was a kid, and I don't think we've ever once cleaned it. The springs in it, I'm sure, are worn out as well. This is very good to learn on. .22 long rifle, very low recoil. This does have a elevation zeroer on it. I know we have one rifle that's kind of missing that, and as a result, you just got to kind of Kentucky windage that one. So this is this one. This is one I grew up with. This is actually my father's. It's not technically mine, but I definitely get way more use out of it than he does. All right, 10 gauge shotgun, single shot. I have not shown this on this channel because I'm still trying to figure out if this one is safe to shoot. There's actually just a little bit of a gap in between the barrel and the back of the breech right here. And I don't know if that is filled in with the rim of the 10 gauge shotgun. Have not looked into it, haven't done anything with this shotgun. I actually bought it from the same dude at that same Waffle House that I did that M38 Carcano. So have not even attempted to look at this. I literally bought it, took it, put it in my closet, and it stayed there. Never tried anything with this thing. So maybe I'll do that one of these days. The barrel. Yeah, we do have a little bit of play in it, but it's not something I would be concerned about. My concern would be that gap. I'm definitely going to have to look into that, see if that is filled in by the rim. We got ourselves a little leather butt pad back here. That'd probably help with absorbing some recoil. The stock does have a very minor crack in it, but that's not something I'd be concerned about. This looks like Hopkins and Allen Arms Co., Connecticut, USA, 10 gauge. And that is all I see about this. I have no idea what choke would be in this thing. I don't know anything else about this shotgun, but I do know that I have it, and I'm showing off everything that I have that within reason. So this is this one. All right, this is my actual, legitimately first firearm. I consider the Mosin to be my first real gun. This is a single shot 410 shotgun, and it belonged to my great-grandfather, who passed, like it's a family heirloom shotgun. Passed it to my father, passed it, well, great-grandfather to grandfather to father to me. I've never shot anything alive with this, I don't think. My father, he said he used to take, like, small game all the time with this, but I've never been in a situation where I could go out as a youngin' and take a bunch of small game with this thing. By the time I was shooting like military surplus rifles that I was finding on the market. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I mean, I've shot this thing, don't get me wrong, I've definitely put my fair share of rounds to it. But my father told me, like, he's told me some of the stories about this thing, and the things him and his father used to do with it and whatnot. And it's definitely family heirloom. If I could only pick one, like if this was the case to where I could only pick one, even though this is the least practical just because of the history this has with my family, I would probably pick it. Hammer on it is broken. I mean, it still works. You just gotta kinda, well, honestly, I just kinda use my shirt to pull that back. Pull it back. I don't think that there's anything in this chamber. Probably should have checked that though. Nope, nothing in the chamber. Pull it back. We have ourselves a little button right here. Push that. It opens up, and we have ourselves a nice thick steel wall. I'm pretty sure 45 Colt will also fire through a 410, but I'm not going to risk hurting the barrel on this thing to test that theory. I'd probably get something else to test that, but not this. Oh goodness, what monstrosity do I have here? This is a Type I, Type 1 Carcano, Arisaka thing. I've heard people call it all sorts of stuff, and somebody's going to go in the comments and they're going to say, it's Type I because it's from Italy, and then there's going to be other people, it's Type 1, it was designed by Italy to go to the Jap. Like, I've heard it both ways, and I'm not sure which is true. Whatever it is that you want to tell me down in the comments below, you go ahead and you tell me, and I will be sure to acknowledge that once again I am hearing two different ways of what to call this rifle. Type 1/Type I Carcano, chambered in 6.5 Jap. This right here is an Arisaka from this point up until about this point. The action itself is Carcano. The magazine well is still an Arisaka style magazine well. Definitely my preference So this is actually the longest rifle, well, maybe. I haven't actually measured it out. I think that this is just slightly longer than my Type 38 Arisaka, but I will have to recheck that. But anyway, it's a Carcano that fires 6.5 jab, essentially. This right here was missing some stuff whenever I'd gotten it. I got a butt plate that kind of works, and there's wood screws holding that in. And the dovetail here on the back of the stock, I got some wood screws holding that in. The firing pin to this is actually busted, and I do intend to get myself another one. I just haven't gotten around to doing that. I have a lot of old guns that definitely need some maintenance and some looking at. So here we go, guys. Oh, that's interesting. First time I've really looked at this thing in the stripper clip guide back there. Very, very interesting. I'm not used to seeing a Carcano style action with a stripper clip guide on it like that, but I guess it makes sense since this is technically, quote unquote, supposed to be an Arisaka. Very fascinating. Whenever I see this rifle and think about it, I think about like the Mafia helping out the Yakuza. Like, you guys need guns, we'll make you some guns. Don't worry about it. Alright, 1891 Argentine Mauser chambered in 7.65 Argentine. It is a single stack magazine. 7.65 Argentine is roughly equivalent, kind of a little bit more powerful than 7.62 NATO. Just a little bit larger bullet, not by very much, and a little bit more case capacity, not by very much. 7.65 versus 7.62. It's a 313 diameter bullet versus 308, and 53 millimeters versus 51. This one does have a little bit of sporterization going on. I like the front sight on this thing because I can actually see that front sight whenever I go to fire this thing. 7.65 Argentine Mausers, well, 7.65 Argentine. It's been a long day, guys, and I've been doing this for a little while now. 7.65 Argentine recoil is much harsher than I originally was expecting it to, so whenever I came out to shoot this rifle for the first time, oh boy, I was not expecting the harsh recoil that I had gotten from that. So, not much more I can say about this one. Like I said, we do have some sporterization going on with this, but not too terribly much. The barrel has obviously been cut. If I had to make a guess, maybe the bore of the barrel was worn out or something like that, and they just wanted to get a little bit more life out of this barrel, and they cut it, threw a sight on it, and now I have a 7.65 Argentine. It is a cock on close action, much like the Enfield series, so I imagine if you had the means to do so, you could run this very quickly. I do not know if this is a stripper clip guide on the back of this Mauser. Question mark, not sure. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me whether or not that is a thing. Let me know, I guess. We do have some holes drilled and tapped in the event that you want to put a scope on this thing. I don't foresee me doing that because I really like the iron sights on it. Shapur #1 Mark III, chambered in 7.62 NATO. The date on this is 1968. So bolt actions were very, very much out the door whenever this one was kind of thrown into military service. And it did not last very long. I think that this right here is the last, like, military bolt action full issue that was utilized during that time period. Of course, we still have it in specialized roles and whatnot, but like a standard military issue rifle, I think that this was the last bolt action. Unlike conversions, this right here was 7.62 NATO right from the factory, so they didn't have to worry about converting like already existing 303 Enfields into 7.62 NATO. They just kind of already made them. Why they made #1 Mark IIIs instead of converting to #4s, I'm not 100% certain. I don't think that India ever did convert to using #1 Mark IVs, even whenever they became way more mainstream than the #1 Mark IIIs by the British. Not 100% sure on the full history of this rifle. I got a bug flying around me. But I do know that during this time period, box-fed automatic magazine, like magazine-fed automatic rifles were definitely going to be the wave of the future. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. The magazine on this particular one is a little on the messed up side. There we go. And this is definitely a heavy rifle. I would not want to fight modern combat with this thing. Recoil's not that bad considering how heavy it is. Come on, baby, get out of there. And it's a little on the sticky side. I could probably finagle this thing to work a little bit better, but I don't really use it all that often. All right, this is one you have not seen. This is a 56 caliber. It's just a muzzle loader. 54 caliber, not 56. 54 caliber. It's a stag horn. I bought it for 80 bucks a while ago, and the reason I bought it was because it was a cheap muzzle loader, and I did not have a 54 caliber muzzle loader. Polymer stock, very lightweight. If I decided to use this for actual like hunting during muzzle loading season, it would definitely serve my purposes. Receiver is drilled and tapped in case you want to mount a scope on it. If you don't feel like doing that, we do have ourselves some very nice iron sights on this thing. I've never actually shot this thing. I don't know how accurate it would be. I imagine it would be pretty damn accurate because the bore and barrel on this thing appear to be fairly decent. Of course, whenever you're firing round ball, like I would probably be firing out of this thing, that doesn't really matter much. The round ball will definitely equate to a dramatic loss in accuracy. So this right here just kind of pulls back just like that. And whenever you pull the trigger, it goes forward. This is an inline muzzle loader. It flies forward, hits the primer, detonates the charge that you have, pushing the ball forward and out of the barrel. So not the most exotic of my firearms, and it's not one that I've shown on the channel, but now I have. It's on the channel. All right, my KP15 M16 style build. Obviously this is not an M16 style clone by any stretch of the imagination, just made to kind of mimic one. I was going for more of an A1 style look, but we got some A2 features on here and some A4 features, and there's a lot going on with this. If you have not heard of the What Would Stoner Do project, I recommend looking it up because it's a really, really fun concept, and that's kind of where this rifle came from for the most part, or at least the lower receiver of this thing. Besides that, it's a PSA upper on a KP15 lower, and it is, well, it mimics an M16 style. It mimics it enough to where people can recognize that this is a retro build. It's accurate. It's actually a very accurate rifle. PSA tends to definitely do some good work in the accuracy department, and it is reliable enough to be a range toy. I don't know if I'd bet my life on it, but it's a fun range toy. Send a couple of rounds of that through, just why not send them downrange. This right here is a retro build, and I do have a pencil barrel on this thing. Those 3 shots alone were enough to warm this thing up. But pencil barrel, it's very lightweight with the lower receiver being polymer and whatnot. It is definitely, like I said, incredibly lightweight. 223 is already not a hard recoiling round, but with how lightweight this thing is, you can still tell that you're firing. I want to add more onto this, but there's just not much else to add to this. I got a standard birdcage flash hider. I might throw on a 3-prong, make it look more authentic to an old school build. But besides that, all right, well, let me go ahead and put this thing down and grab something else. All right, Marlin 336 and 3030. This is actually my first 3030. This is another rifle I bought off of that friend of mine who, if he shows up with the money again, he can just buy it right back. I don't know the history or the story behind this thing, but I do know that there is some history and some stories behind this, as there is with basically any used gun that you pick up, especially whenever it is decades old by the time that you get it. This one says EST 1870 micro groove barrel mod 336 cal 3030 Winchester, North Haven, Connecticut, USA, the Marlin Firearms Company. So, rear sight on this thing. We have ourselves elevation on it that has not been lost. Sometimes these do get lost because they're not actually attached to the sights. I do like the rear sight and the front sight, like how they visibly look. The rear sight notch is just cut out in a way to where me with my blind eyes, I can see it. This is a side ejecting system, and it does have little screws on the top of the receiver in the event that you do feel like mounting a scope. We do have a Kingsgate style of loading. I'm pretty sure with this, to unload the rifle, you push this in and it should pop the other rounds out. I'm not positive about that. I don't 100% know a lot about Marlin firearms. I know you cannot do that with Winchester designs though. But besides that, it is a standard lever action design. Lever goes forward, lever comes back, pull the trigger, it goes bang. We have ourselves a locking system in here. I know a lot about Winchester lever actions, not that much about Marlin. I'm pretty sure they got their start in 1894. and their receiver reciprocating lever action system looked very different than what we see here. But with Winchester, it was a top ejection system. Marlin was a side ejection system, probably to refrain from getting impacted with patents and whatnot. Don't 100% know the history on Marlin, so I can't talk much into that, but I do know I have shot this rifle. Not a whole lot, but enough to know it's reliable and accurate, and definitely 30-30 is a powerful cartridge. I would not feel bad about taking this one hunting. This Marlin was made before any safety features, like any safeties or whatnot, were thrown onto these rifles. I know those malfunction pretty much regularly, but the safety on this rifle is pretty much just a little half notch that you man, I gotta hydrate. A little half notch that you can go to with your hammer, just like that. That protects your hammer from striking a primer if it was just sitting on the firing pin. It prevents anything from actually hitting the firing pin. It's just, that's a very universal hammer, or a very universal safety for the time period where this right here was designed. All right, up next, MP40. This right here is also by GSG. It's a 22 long rifle, not their 9mm version. And we do have ourselves a stock that flips out on this thing, just like the traditional MP40s. So it does make storage definitely far more convenient than a fixed stock would. Magazine comes on the bottom. This one right here is undergoing repairs, actually. So we do not have any internals inside of this thing. The faux suppressor on the end is, in fact, faux. So that means it's not real, and it is just there to extend this thing to the point of the legal requirements by the United States. I have not measured the barrel on this thing, but I imagine it is somewhere around 16 inches. I do know whenever I break this thing out, people look at it and they're like, wow, what is that? That is really cool. And then they look at it a little bit more and they're like, that looks like an MP40. They recognize it from video games and whatnot. I'm like, that's exactly what that is. And then we take it out, 22 long rifle, very easy to shoot. Got ants on me. 22 long rifle, very easy to shoot. There's ants on my MP40. Where'd you guys come from? Get out of here. And they just tend to have a very fun time putting lead down range with this thing. All right, well, we're not done yet. Oh boy, this is the last of this batch. Let me go ahead and head back over there and grab the next group of stuff. Hold on to your horses, guys. All right, up next on the list is a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous CMP refurbished M1 Garand or Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing that. And this thing is in immaculate shape. Judging by the serial number, I think that this is a 1954 production. I'm not positive about that. 5460 and some change. I'm sure somebody in the comments can tell me if this actually is 1954 production. Whenever I got this, I traded some stuff for it. I think I got this like ballpark area total spent, like including the cost of everything that I had spent on it. I think I picked it up for like 1,400 bucks or so. And that's a little on the steep side for an M1 Garand pronunciations, whatever it is you feel like calling it, but that's a little on the stiff side, unless you're talking about one that is in as gorgeous of shape as this one is in. Now this is a CMP refurbishment. We do have a CMP refurbishment cartouche on our stock there, but yeah, I still deemed it absolutely worth it, because this thing is just, I wish I had some sunlight over here to show you guys. It is mint. It is fantastic. This rifle is gorgeous in absolutely every single way. And I have had people complain about the bandolier that I have on this thing. Like, it's a gorgeous rifle, why do you have that piece of crap there? And there's a story behind this. I'm not going to go into the story because my time is limited, but I know what you guys want to see, so let's go ahead and send around downrange. I have no idea if this rifle is actually zeroed, by the way. Yep, it is in fact zeroed. And hey, that was pretty cool. That was a nice audible Garand ping. I actually keep this one like out of the collection. This is absolutely a safe queen, guys. I don't go lugging around with this one. We all have our safe queens that we just, well, if you're a collector like me, we all have our safe queens that we just keep in pristine condition. 100% a safe queen. But I keep this one separate from everything. It's got like its own wall hanger that it hangs on to prevent getting scratched and whatnot. Also on that very same wall hanger is this right here. This is an IAI M1 carbine. This is a reproduction made sometime in the 90s, but it looks really, really nice. It doesn't function very well. The duct tape on the magazine right there is a clear indicator of that. I made a video on it. Go check it out. But it doesn't function very well. It does function, just not all that great. But hey, whenever it's hanging on the wall or whenever I'm showing it off on videos, there's not a scratch on this rifle, obviously, because it wasn't, you know, used in war or anything like that. Aesthetically, this is a very pleasing rifle to look at. So right next to my mint condition M1 Garand, this right here is just a good yin to that yang. So I don't know when, like the exact year that this was made. I know it's IAI out of Houston, Texas. I know that it's not a very good quality carbine. It hits substantially to the right, so my rear sight is like really, really far on the receiver to go ahead and compensate for that. But now that I have it compensated, it does hit accurately whenever I take shots on target. It does not cycle at all. People are going to tell me it's the magazine, it's the follower, it's this, it's that, it's XYZ, and I know exactly what it is. I don't feel like going into that, so I'm just going to go ahead and say I keep this for aesthetic purposes, because boy, does it look really nice. Alright, this right here is the M1 Garand that I have. This is my actual, like, go out to the range, enjoy shooting M1 Garand, if you can find 30-06 for less than $1 around right now, because these things are pretty gosh darn expensive to shoot right now. Definitely not a everyday out on the range plinking kind of rifle, but this is the one that I go to. This is a 1944 production, I believe, if memory serves me whenever I check down that date. Springfield Armory made. Not a whole lot to be said about this one. I picked this one up for right around $1,000, and that is more along the lines of what you would want to spend on an M1 Garand. So $1,000, took it home, and I've ran quite a few rounds through this thing. We do have wartime, I forget what these things are called. It's a little locking system, with lack of better terminology, locking system on the rear sight that stops the rear sight from moving around. And we also have a gas plug on this thing that is not one of the aftermarket gas plugs. It's the original gas plug, but it's got a different design than the gas plugs that I'm used to seeing on after World War II production M1 Garands. So there must be a something that was done during wartime production. I'm also going to say that the stock on this one is like less bulgy, less rounded than the stock on my other Springfield Armory, so maybe they were doing something different during wartime production. There's an A on the little hand grip right here on the stock of the rifle. Besides that, this one right here has a little bit of wear and tear to it, so I don't feel bad about taking this one out to the range. If I feel like shooting M1 Garand, this will be the one that I bring out. Speaking of shooting an M1 Garand, I have no idea if this one is zeroed either. Yep, she is definitely zeroed. Where did my clip go? It just fell right here and vanished into the earth. Ah, there she is. But yep, that is this one here. So I do have 2 M1 Garands and 0 M14s. Big sad. I'm probably going to change that. Just have a tough time justifying getting an M14, because, you know, spending $1,500 on one of those would get me a whole lot of 30-06 for my M1 Garands. And the M1 Garand goes ping. So this right here is actually, I believe, my first muzzle loading rifle. This is a Hawkins Traditions style rifle, or Traditions Hawkins style rifle, made by Spain Frontier. I am not positive if that is a branch of Traditions. I looked it up a long time ago and I can't quite remember. Anyway, it's a Hawkins, clearly a Hawkins style inspired rifle, 50 caliber. I have shot a lot of stuff with this rifle, and one reason why I like this rifle is with this locking wedge right here. Comes right out, barrel action comes off, really easy to clean. I just kind of run it through some hot water. Nice and simple. You don't have to worry about getting your wood wet like you do with the black powder rifle I'm about to show you. It's a traditional style of side locking, you know, side hammer falling action with this muzzle loader. I probably should have drank some water before I came back out here. I think that this takes number 11 caps. I could be wrong about that. Memory serves, I think it's number 11. I think I can just swap that nipple out for something else. I'm not sure of the barrel length on this thing, but it is a a shorter barrel than a full-length muzzle, so definitely pretty convenient. I have no idea what the twist rate is on this thing either. Maybe it says somewhere in here. Nope, doesn't say twist rate. All it says is Connecticut Valley Arms, Spain Frontier. Black powder only, 50 cal. Very sweet. So, yeah, I have used this quite a bit. I do like the stock on it, but it has been scratched up and banged up and whatnot, so I'm not afraid to take this thing out and use it for practical purposes. This muzzle loader, I really like. This is a Jukar Arms, I'm not sure how that is pronounced. Also a Spanish rifle. It just said Spain right on the side, Jukar. And this right here is reminiscent of a Plains rifle or a Kentucky rifle. Now I'm sure somebody's going to go in the comments and say, your front sight's on backwards, you freaking moron. You shouldn't even be playing with guns if you can't even figure that out. And yeah, I know it's on backwards. Have you ever stopped to think maybe I perhaps might have done that on purpose? With this right here being reflective brass, that, you know, long surface area that we have on our front sight there reflects off the sun nicely, and I can see my front sight very well with this rifle. Skinny rifle kind of reminds me of like an awkward broomstick or something like that. 45 caliber. I have shot many things with this rifle and made many videos on this rifle. Just go ahead and check, make sure we got no rust or anything going on with this. Been a while since I've messed with this rifle. Little bit of surface rust starting to show up along the barrel, nothing that a little bit of oil won't take care of. I believe that this is also number 11 caps. I know one of my muzzle loaders is a number 10, and number 11 is definitely the standard for muzzle loaders, but these nipples on these rifles are like replaceable, so you can replace it with whatever you want. I do not like the curvature of the buttstock and how skinny the buttstock is. It's a very front-heavy rifle with this long, heavy, thick barrel and very, you know, skinny, short stock profile. And I don't like this cutout because it just does not fit my arm all that well. I mean, with the loads I use, it's not like I'm rocking absolute powerhouse cartridges or absolute powerhouse loadings. Typically I'll run like 50 to 70 grains of black powder whenever I run this 45 caliber, so it doesn't exactly beat the hell out of me, but that's this one right here. Alright, this is one that showed up on the channel many years ago. I actually shot this on this channel many years ago. The stock has long since vanished on this. This is a double-barreled 20-gauge shotgun made by Stevens. Let's see if I can find a model. It says Frontier Arms Company, New York, made in Spain. So maybe it's not a Stevens. Zephyr Woodlander. Maybe it is a Stevens. I can't remember. I remember looking this up and there being something about this. Maybe I was looking at Stevens side-by-sides whenever I was looking this up, because I was trying to find a replacement stock for this thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This right here has sat in my closet for a long time because I was unable to find a replacement stock for this thing. 20 gauge side by side, it does work, it does function. I mean, if I wanted to, I could fire this thing, but last time I fired it, just all this jagged metal right here, it did cut my hand whenever I fired it many years ago on video. But it is functional. If I felt like loading this and pulling the trigger, it would in fact go off. I actually have some pretty interesting, funny stories behind this right here. Memories. So this is a single shot 12 gauge shotgun. This particular one, this is a Stevens. So I might have gotten those mixed up. But this is a Stevens single shot 12 gauge, and this was actually one of the firearms that I bought off of that buddy who needed some money, and you know, whenever he gets himself together, he just buys them back for the same price. But the issue with this one is the trigger on this one does not function. The trigger, something has come loose or broken or come apart inside of our mechanism in here, and as a result, we can open this thing up. But the trigger will not let the hammer fall. So this should be dropping that trigger, but it's simply not. And yeah, we got something going on in there. It feels like, just from me playing with it, I have not checked this thing out at all, but it feels like there's no spring on this thing, because our hammer does fall. Like, I can push it forward whenever I pull the trigger, but there's obviously no spring. There's no spring tension on that at all. So we got something going on in there that will need some hand work, some effort to get that up and going. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. So maybe I'll do that down the road. Not exactly on the highest of my priority list. Looks like our butt plate here is busted as well. Okay, well, that is this one right here, Stevens single shot 12 gauge. Alright, this right here is a muzzle loader that I am currently working on. This is, what was the brand on this one? It's an inline muzzle loader made in Spain, Traditions. So this is a Traditions. I believe this one is a 50 caliber, might be 54, but I think this is 50, let me see. Yes, 50 cal, 1 in 32 twists. So there's supposed to be a bolt attached to this thing. I'm currently working on getting that actually up and going and functional. And we have something physically stuck inside of the barrel of this thing. So I got to get in there and get that out. I don't believe it's a projectile. I believe it's like a mud dauber or some kind of pile of crap or something like that. And whoever fired this thing last, they did not clean out the black powder. And we just have rust all through this thing. It has definitely seen better days. So lots of pros, lots of cons with this thing. I like working on stuff and getting it going, but this one needs a whole lot of work. And I do intend to get it going. It's just going to take some time and effort, which is exactly what I'm working on. And whenever I get that up and going, you guys will probably see this on the channel whenever I take it out and blow some stuff up with it. Alright, this right here is a bolt action single shot 410. I do not know if it's rated, like I do not know the shell size that it is rated for. I don't know very much about this at all. It says Stevens Model 54, proof tested, 410 bore proof tested. Yeah, that's what that says. This is from that same friend, and it is a little on the rusty and corroded side. Definitely has seen better days, but it's lightweight, like I said, single shot, stupid simple. This one seems functional. Pull the trigger. Ah, well, maybe not. Ah, that's right, you have to manually cock this thing in order to get it to fire. So manually cock it whenever you cycle that action. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, manually cocking it locks it and stops it from opening. So then you pull the trigger, that falls, goes bang, and now you can cycle it and get that out. Do we have an... Yes, we actually have an ejector, so we have both extractor and ejector. Fascinating. I've never checked this thing out. I never took the time to look at it. But here we go. This is another one in the arsenal. Single shot 410 shotgun. Never messed around with it. Never did anything with it. And I'm probably going to at one point or another, just to show off how much fun a single shot 410 can be. This one here is another muzzle loader. This is a Wolf brand muzzle loader. Yeah, Wolf, read instructions, 50 cal, black powder only. This one is actually missing the breech face. I'm not sure what you would call that. The breech plug that goes into the back of the barrel right there, where the firing pin would hit the primer. But it's a break open, just like kind of shotgun reminiscent, to where you can put your primer cap. I believe that's what that's called. Just your little cap that you put you know, on your as your ignition source. I believe that these would also take a number 11 cap, but obviously this one does not, because it doesn't even have the breech face on it. And our muzzle and our barrels seem pretty decent. There's no crap or anything clogging this one up, and there's not a whole lot of rust in this thing. Our sights, we do have fiber optic sights, so if this thing was up and going properly, well, it would appear that the rear sight is gone. I never really took the time to look at that, but yeah, rear sight, dovetail right there. There's supposed to be a rear sight in that thing, and it is, oh goodness, that moves. That's gonna need some attention. That's gonna need some attention right there. Maybe not quite as up and going as I thought, but we're missing some stuff on this rifle. It's an incomplete rifle, but it does seem functional. Pull the trigger, hammer falls. If there was a thing there to get hit and go bang, then it would go bang. So this right here is another one on the list. All right, YouTube, 20 round magazine. This is not a standard capacity round. You know, this is a 20 round. So in compliance with YouTube's guidelines, semi-automatic, not automatic. So also in compliance with YouTube's community guidelines. This right here is my Romanian RH10, and it's basically a Wasser 10 that has some, well, it's a Wasser 10 from about here back. The gas system is a little bit on the different, and the sight block is a little bit different. It's got a sight block gas port like combo, one of those setups. And the barrel length is long enough for US law, so I don't have to worry about anything like that, but I'm pretty sure in other countries the barrel ends right about here. However, here being the United States, minimum 16-inch barrel if you have a stock on your firearm, and this right here meets those requirements. So whenever I got this thing, it had basically plywood furniture on it. It was garbage. It was not good furniture at all. So I threw on some redwood furniture, which has served me very, very well. This does have issues with rusting. I do have to keep it well oiled and well lubricated to stop it from rusting. I do not like the furniture, like how short the length of pull is, so I went ahead and I threw on a butt pad, which does help with the recoil. 7.62x39 doesn't have a lot of recoil, but with this it feels more like 5.56, and it also gives me about an inch of added length of pull. So I don't know if you guys, if you're watching this, if you're an AK guy or not, but I very much like the AK. This was actually my go-to rifle for any kind of like situation that I got myself in for quite a while. This was the rifle I would have picked, but I've definitely upgraded since then. Now I would not feel underpowered if I decided to go out with this thing. And well, like I said earlier in the video, 7.62x39, I never shoot past 300 yards anyway, so yeah, that's well within the ballpark of what the 7.62x39 can do. I really like the AK. This right here was like my good go-to universal rifle because you can mount a scope on it, and a 30 caliber round, I mean, that is big enough to take basically anything that you would have to take here in Florida. I could get 5-round magazines for this if I decided to go out and hunt with it. As a matter of fact, I have one, and I have hunted with this rifle in particular. There's just a lot of pros with having a rifle like this. With the piston-driven system, this right here requires very, very little maintenance. I fired thousands and thousands of rounds through this, never cleaned it a single time, and it is still going strong. Not the most accurate system, especially with the single-stage trigger in it, but besides that, that's my Romanian RH-10. Alright, now comes this nightmare of a rifle. YouTube, same magazine, 20 rounds, and a semi-automatic platform, not an automatic platform. So well within the guidelines of what YouTube tells me I am allowed to put on this platform. So this is an Interordnance AK, and oh boy, was this thing a mess. I was always telling people, like, yeah, I have one, I put a bunch of rounds through it, no problem at all. Well, around the 2,500 round mark, this thing absolutely fell apart. And that's like when these are rated to fall apart. Like they tend to not last beyond that. They got just the cast parts and the metallurgy and whatnot in these are just designed to fail around that point. Well, not designed to fail around that point, but they're designed in a way to where once you get to that point, these are pretty much disposable, and you're supposed to huck them and grab yourself a new, very cheap budget tier AK. But anyway, once I got to that point, and this thing absolutely just failed on me, like everything in this rifle was basically done. The trunnion, which was cast, was like, well, it was so warped just from consistent firing and whatnot, and just dealing with all the pressures and what an AK is supposed to be able to handle, no problem. That trunnion was just, it was messed up. It was a messed up trunnion. And anyone who's built AKs knows that you need you need physical presses, and I mean, luckily for me, I have all the equipment I need to take care of this stuff. But you need presses, and you got to take the barrel ounce, and you got to just to get that trunnion you need basically a machine shop. You need a full machine shop to be able to work on these things. But that trunnion was definitely messed up. So the trunnion has been replaced in this thing. And I took a Romanian parts kit. I think it was Romanian. Might have been, yeah, it was Romanian. I took a Romanian parts kit from something. Might have been a Wasser, might have been, I don't know. Insert Romanian AK here. And I took the guts out of this one and threw in a bunch of Romanian parts and whatnot into this thing to actually get it going. The hammer and whatnot, those are original, and they are severely worn. The bolt carrier group right here, also original to IO, severely worn, starting to like significantly mushroom. Just all of the load-bearing parts were destroying themselves under consistent fire, including the bolt. The bolt in this thing was made of cast metal, and after the firing, I could see that the bolt was physically warping itself to taking itself out of headspace. So the bolt has been replaced. Basically everything in this rifle has been completely replaced, and the only parts that are IO on this are the barrel, the gas port, the bolt carrier group, the receiver. Actually, this is Romanian furniture that I have on this as well, and I think the pistol grip is still from Inner Ordnance as well. And I even think that this is an Inner Ordnance magazine. It sure is. So lots of Inner Ordnance still with this AK-47. However, a lot of it has been fixed. A lot of this has been fixed. So now whenever I fire this thing, whenever I used to fire this thing, it did feel like there was something wrong. You would get consistent gas blowback in your face as the bolt just continued to mushroom itself out. It was a mess. It was absolutely a mess. However, now it fires. Oh God, where'd you guys go? What are y'all doing down there? Ah, damn, that came out and everything. What a mess. Well, that was a fun little POV shot. All right, now that you guys are up there, let's go ahead and give you guys a couple of rounds of fire here that doesn't involve you guys laying on the ground. All right, without the muzzle device on this thing that an AK would normally have, the blast that comes out of this is quite intense. So there we go. That is my Inner Ordnance AK. I will say that because the bolt carrier group has been spray painted and the hammer is very much mushroomed, it catches on the hammer pretty roughly, and it's far from a smooth action. So you gotta like smack it forward. But I mean, what do you expect? There's freaking spray paint in the system there. Well, guys, there you go. That is all of my stuff. Now the family has their own stuff. Like, we could go into my father's guns, but that's his stuff. Might do that down the road. But this is my stuff, and this is my YouTube stuff. All of this stuff has already been on the YouTube channel with a couple of exceptions, but it's either already been on the channel or will be on the channel. There is some stuff that I have that I do not put out there for public knowledge because those things are my business, and you know, there's just some things that you don't tell people that you have. You don't want to tell people, hey, this is what I would use to defend myself, because then people kind of know what to expect and know what to deal with. But anyway, that's a tangent for another point. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. If you made it this far, by God, let me know. Oh boy, what an adventure this has been. I'm sunburnt, dehydrated, starving. I've been doing this for almost 6 hours, showing off all of this stuff. Yeah, wow, what a video this is gonna be. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Like, subscribe, share, description below, link to all sorts of stuff. And well, I will see y'all on the next video, I guess. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garand. Shame that bolt action shotguns